Hey guys, you're watching the Best Practices Show, where we take a look at the best business practices from the best dental practices all across the country. And as you go down the path of great restorative dentistry, we're going to talk today about the secret to becoming the specialist on your interdisciplinary team with one of the best ever who's done this. And very few people have ever done this. So don't miss this. Do me a favor, grab a pen and hit the share button. We're going to talk to Dr. D Becker. See ya in a second. Hey guys, welcome back to the Best Practices Show. We are having so much fun doing these, and thank you so much for the requests. And I just can't say anything other than we're grateful and having a ton of fun doing this. Up over 15,000 followers already. It's only been 2 months and over 250,000 views a week. So just crazy grateful. Keep sending us the requests, the things that you want to see, and we're going to keep bringing it to you. And today is going to be super fun with a dear friend of mine, and you'll see why here in a second, because a lot of you are trying to do great restorative dentistry and trying to find your path. You're going to see this is an extremely unique path, and some special things happen on that. Now, before we get started, just a couple show notes. We are shooting this live on Facebook. And as you're watching the live feed, if you have questions, feel free to add them to the feed, and I'll ask Darren himself, and we'll get the answers straight from the top. And then also, if you're watching this later on, maybe after the live broadcast, continue to add questions to the feed, because we want to make sure we're getting you good answers to the things that you're thinking about. My guess is if you've got a question, somebody else also has a question. So keep asking them. Now, my buddy who's on today, I've watched him grow and develop, and we've been dear friends for a very long time, and I've known him, and your story is just very cool. There's just so few people that have done what you have done in such a great place. I again, just an incredible friend, and Ben and I, the producer, were talking before we get, there's nobody better at hosting anyone. Like every time I come down to see you, I always have a great meal, great wine, great stories, laugh until my face hurts. I'm just crazy grateful that you carve out some time for us. Now, if people don't know who Dr. D Becker is, give us your story. Tell us a little bit about how this all developed for you and who you are and where you practice. Sure.
So I actually grew up in Miami, Florida, and went through my formative years down there, during which time I was exposed at an early age through my father, Erwin Becker, who was the chairman of education at the Panky Institute. Yep. So when I was a kid, he had private practice, but then he was teaching, and I spent summers at the Panky Institute pouring models and doing things and hanging out with LD and hearing these guys and seeing all the greats, and it was really a unique experience. And believe me, I know how lucky I was. When I finished dental school, I was also fortunate to have an opportunity to go practice with one of my mentors, Jim Kincaid, here in Atlanta, Georgia. And Jim taught me what it meant to be a professional. I guess I learned that, but he instilled that even more, and how to do things right, not just from the technical, which we had a lot of, but on the practice side. He runs an amazing business, so we learned a lot of that, and then eventually I bought my practice, and so Atlanta Dental Solutions is our practice, and I practice by myself. We have 2 hygienists. It's kind of a standard general practice, but we have a focus on these complex interdisciplinary cases. Mm-hmm. And what we find is we've got a system in place to work with our specialists, and that allows us to help patients through what are sometimes very complicated treatments and long drawn out phases. And when you get into ortho, it's even longer, and then healing from surgeries and all that kind of thing. So that's really what we've got.
Yeah, now this is a really important topic, and I want to talk about this because you kind of have the reverse referral situations, in this, that you're getting, you can talk about this better than I can, but the majority of your referrals come from your specialists. Is that correct?
Yeah. So over the last several years, we've tracked it. About 85% of our new patient flow comes from the specialists. Mm-hmm. So the orthodontist primarily, periodontists secondarily, and then the oral surgeons that we work with are probably the take up the rest of the group. We actually do get some from the endodontist, but we won't throw them under the bus. But so it kind of started with having a case that was something difficult or complex, and I don't remember the specific case, but we're all right, we need to sit down and talk about this, and so we did that, and then that was happening more and more, and eventually we said, we need to set a regular date because it was becoming challenging to find the time. When are we going to all get together and meet? So we have a set date, the first Monday of every month. At 4:00, we get together. We happen to meet at the orthodontist's office because he has the biggest conference room, mm-hmm. and the biggest TV. He's got this huge TV, and I bought him an Apple TV. So we sit at the conference table, and we can all just use the I forget what that's called, where you can grab the screen, and we all have our laptops, and you just put our stuff on the screen. So what happens is we sit around, and we have these lists of patients, and we go over each case. So it started out where it was my patients, and we would talk about my patients. But then I realized that the oral surgeon and the orthodontist, they had a couple of patients they would talk about that weren't my patients, that they would have a question, a restorative question about. Mm-hmm. And I became the voice of the restorative guy because there was no one else there. Yeah. And then the periodontist would have some question with the orthodontist about a case that wasn't my patient. So all of a sudden, I'm really becoming sort of the expert. And it just happened by being there. I might have had one patient to talk about, but we ended up talking about 5 or 6 patients, and they're seeing me as the expert now. And then, fast forward, they have patients who come to them and say, hey, I want to redo my grill, whatever. Right. And they know it's going to require some restorative aspect along with their orthodontic or perio or whatever it is. And well, who do we send them to? Let's send them to Becker, Right. And so the specialists have now just basically started sending the patients to me because they know we have this system in place that allows things to flow easier. So number one is having the scheduled time. Mm-hmm. Really is probably the biggest thing. If you don't schedule it, it doesn't happen. Right. And even if, like I say, if I have one patient to talk about of mine, I still go and I spend the whole time there. So the other thing I would say is this is not easier. It's not easier. All. It doesn't save time. It takes time, but the reward is amazing because those patients that they refer to me, dude, they are ready to go. They come to me, they go, Dr. Orthodontist said that once he straightens my teeth out, then you have to put these veneers on here. Or once I get this implant in, but he said he can't put the implant in until you tell him where to put it or how to put it or whatever. So, they come to me going, I'm ready to go. What do I do? And it's kind of a unique situation. I know you talk about sort of the 4 ways that patients come into your practice, and we just have the 5th way, which is we call the specialist consult. So when a patient's coming from the specialist, we've got that hour that they come in for this sort of specialized consultation. We treat it differently than we would a new patient necessarily, or we would so it's not always a comprehensive exam that first visit. Right. Especially because they may come to me already in braces, Right. And we're going to talk about that visit because that visit's very unique to your practice. But I guess the thing that I want to share, if you're watching this, this is really built on huge levels of trust and advocacy. I mean, you work hard for these guys. And a lot of times, GPs will say, well, how do I get more referrals from your specialists? Because you can imagine these are some of the easiest cases, not easy cases, but easy conversations that you have, and people come really well prepared, but it's not about taking them to lunch because nobody has time to go to lunch anymore. Right. I don't ever go to lunch. Yeah. We don't have wine at these meetings. This is business. We may have a cup of coffee and some snack or something, but it's 4 to sometimes 7 o'clock at night, where we're all sitting around the table, and there's usually a couple orthodontists, a couple periodontists, a couple oral surgeons, and myself. Mm-hmm. And I'm the voice of restorative dentist. And it's a unique but really cool situation. And we go through a treatment plan. Here's the cool part. You've got a patient, you got a case. This patient comes to you, and it's one of those that you look at and you go, what do I do here? And we all have those. There's multiple missing teeth. There's crooked teeth. There's bone defect. There's gum gingival problems. The whole gamut of stuff. There's an airway issue. We need to get the ENT in. We're starting to bring the ENT to these meetings, by the way.
Right.
And it's all this stuff, and you go, I don't know. All right. And you come up with your best treatment plan. And maybe they've already seen the orthodontist who's got a treatment plan. And maybe they've already seen the periodontist who's got a treatment plan. But it's all disjointed. Then we all come together, and you know what happens is we come up with a more complete diagnosis and treatment plan than any one of us did individually.
Right.
The collective group, we call it the gang treatment planning, the gang mentality. We come in there and we end up with something that not any one of us would have come up with by ourselves. Right. And I think that's to the benefit of the patient, and it's to the benefit of us, because it means that we didn't miss something. We don't get halfway through something and go, oh, gee whiz, I realize now we need to do this procedure or whatever. I need you to go see someone. Certainly things come up, but that part of it is it does make it more predictable. It's easier to then come through and figure out fees. Patients want to know, what is this going to cost? So we use a fee estimating worksheet. That it's something that was I got it from the Panky Institute. I honestly don't know who developed it. I think maybe Rich Green, but I can't swear to that.
I have the same sheet. Yeah.
Could have been Mark Murphy. Could have been Rich Green. Yep. Could have been somebody 100 years ago. I don't know. But anyway, it's a simple Excel spreadsheet. And once you know your dollars per hour, which we all need to know that, and you've taught us that, Kirk, then you can figure out, well, all right, how many hours is this thing going to take? And what do I expect the lab bill to be? And you factor in this time of talking with the specialist. So it's not unpaid time, because it's part of the treatment plan. And we can come up with a case fee that is fair, both fair to the patient because it's based on something real, and fair to us, where we're not feeling like, man, I am working my ass off and I got paid $2.50, So
right.
both works both ways, so we use that a lot.
Yeah. Now, I'm going to say this about you because I know you won't say it. People think, well, you were Dr. Irwin Becker's son. Everybody just kind of laid the groundwork, and you had this that was not the case for you. You had to, if anything, it was harder for you because you had to make your own path. And then the other thing I want to say about this is that I think this is one of the problems in the world, not only in dentistry, is that a lot of people want the rewards, but nobody wants to do the hard work that comes with this. And when you make an investment in a real, true interdisciplinary team, I mean, you are there, you are working on it, you're proactively, you've got each other's back at the best interest of the patient. This just doesn't happen in a week or 2 weeks' time. This is a lifetime commitment to the style of practice that you've created. Yeah,
and it took several years to get to the point where we have it now, where it's sort of, I don't want to say automated, but it is sort of that way. And just the team, selecting the team is critical, because you have to be working with a team of specialists who are open and willing to hearing other people's ideas, not to throw anyone under the bus, but some of our brethren in certain specialties that deal with scalpels and blood, they tend to, as a whole, be a little sort of dogmatic, and they know what's best for their patients and so forth. And that's fine, because they're brilliant people. But it doesn't work in one of these situations. They have to be willing to kind of hear other people's views and be open to that. They also have to be willing to put the time in. They have to be willing to put the same time in that we're putting in. And they have to be willing to document their cases. If they don't have the photos and the x-rays and the scans and the whatever to be able to show and discuss, doesn't work. Right. So there's a lot of impetus on that. And I think actually that those practices have to be very similar in philosophy to mine. So if we have a restorative practice that's a relationship-based fee-for-service type of practice, high touch, low volume kind of a thing. And we send them to some place that's, a hygiene mill or whatever, where they're just doing hundreds of scaling and root planings and whatever, that's fine. And there's a place for that, but that kind of practice, and maybe they're on an insurance plan that makes it a different experience. And it's just the patients, it can be confusing because they're used to a certain way and then they're going to a different way. It'd be like if you had always gone to see your same sort of hometown, physician, and it's a one doctor and one nurse, and the wife is at the window when you walk in, and you don't wait and whatever, and then all of a sudden you have to go to this specialist who there's 15 people in the waiting room, and it's a different person every time you go. You never see the same doctor. It's just a different experience. That doesn't work. So, got to be similar in philosophy. And I think that really the relationship between the specialists, it goes beyond just the technical and having these meetings and talk about it. I think it's good. We all socialize together. Right. We, go to each other's birthday party, whatever. And you talked about going to lunch. We don't go to lunch. You know what we do? We send lunch for their teams.
That's awesome.
The dentist doesn't need the lunch. The team gets the lunch, and they know they're getting the lunch from us. And that goes a long way. Actually, we did ice cream sundaes once for them, and that was really cool. So
anyway, is awesome.
So so that's kind of where we are with that. But picking the right team is really important.
Yeah, no, it's huge. It's huge, buddy. And then let's talk about because one of the defining elements, and I think people will see why this is different, talk about the specialist consult and then a regular consult that you might have. How are they different? What are the details? How do you treat them differently? Because it sets the tone for a completely different conversation.
Sure. So when we have a patient call who's coming from one of the specialists, and it's sort of usually for something very specific. Sometimes the patient is not leaving their dentist. They don't need their teeth cleaned with me. They're coming to me for a very specific, I broke this tooth. I need an implant. I need to get this and this and that, whatever it is. Well, guess what? That's fine. We're okay with that. I'm not going to try to steal that patient from the other dentist, because that would be shooting myself in the foot, because then the specialist may not send them to me again. So we're happy to see a patient that way. Sometimes this patient doesn't have a dentist. But either way, when they come from a specialist, usually we already know they're calling. The office has already alerted us. They've sent us their x-rays, even maybe a little referral letter that says what's going on, where they are in treatment, what their treatment plan is, whatever. And the two things that happen that are sort of part of our system. One is they automatically get put on our list for the next specialist meeting. Okay. Now, we may have already talked about them at the last specialist meeting. That's a possibility. If depending on the timing of things. But if not, whatever, they've sent us some stuff. So it's not a blind thing. We kind of know something about the patient. Then they're scheduled usually for an hour. An hour where they'll come in, the ladies will greet them as that we do any new patient, but they'll greet them. Hopefully their paperwork was filled out online, but sometimes that doesn't happen depending on who the patient is. They'll fill out paperwork. Then I'll meet with them in our consult room, and we'll sit down and we'll talk about, hey man, where are you? What's going on? What are you trying to accomplish? What are your concerns? What are your fears? What are your goals? Where are we? So we have a conversation. That conversation might be 15 minutes and it might be the whole hour. And it just depends on the patient and what their situation is. I would say on average, it's 15 to 20 minutes. If my team was behind me, they'd be rolling their eyes. You've never finished one in 20 minutes. It's always 30.
Right.
Because we talk about fishing or gator football or something. But then we will go into the chair, and it's really just almost a once over. They're kicking the tires, if you will, making sure that what the specialist told them about me is what's they're seeing. And maybe they want to see some of our wares. They want to see some photos of previous case like theirs or something. So we get to show them that. And then all I'm doing is looking around. We're not probing. We're not taken photos or x-rays. We probably have good x-rays from the specialist, but we're just looking around and we're making sure, is this a case that we can help the patient out in? And if everything goes well in that appointment, and by the way, we typically have a very low charge for that appointment. And I don't remember what it is, but it's a nominal fee. And the fee is there just to sort of, so that they've got some skin in the game, which it's not a moneymaker. Let me put it that way. It's a loss leader. But it's a nominal fee almost as a service to the specialist. Right. And if they actually ask me, I wouldn't even charge the patient. When we get to the comprehensive exam, which would be the next step, that fee that we charge that patient for the comprehensive exam, which might be an hour and a half appointment with records and photos and occlusal records and bite scans and whatever else we're doing, that appointment will be the normal charge for that appointment. And that we would actually maybe discount the amount we charge them for the specialist consult, just as a way of saying, hey, we recognize you came here once just to kick the tires, something like that. And that, I think that's very fluid. There's no automatic in that one. But that's the difference, is getting them in for that initial specialist consult versus a standard new patient who might call us, who's referred by their buddy who's a patient. They may go right into a comprehensive exam. Right. And we might have a specialist referral that we do put right into a comprehensive exam, but usually they'll come in through the specialist consult, because especially if they got braces on their teeth already, there's not much I'm going to be doing today in terms of comprehensive records or anything like that. We're just meeting them and saying, all right, when you get the braces off, first of all, this is a big one. I check every patient before the braces come off. So for instance, patient we saw yesterday, she had an accident. She broke a couple of front teeth off and was going to lose one. And we needed to do ortho extrusion to be able to bring some bone and gum down, then the extraction, then the implant. And all of this has been happening, and we're checking them periodically. And then she comes in today or yesterday, and are we ready to get the braces off? I get to say the last bit, because is the spacing right? Is the gingival levels right? Is there one last bit that I want on? Because the worst thing that can happen is they come in, they go, hey, I got my braces off yesterday. And I'm looking at it going, oh boy, we needed to do one more thing. And you're not going to put the braces back on for one more thing. But if they're still on, I can say, let's do one more thing and really knock this thing out of the park. And then the orthodontist can just tweak it. It might take a month. And then they get the braces off, and then we're good to go. So that was a side piece there. But, we get to see that. And once the braces are off, then we're going to bring them back and then gather all the records and begin to do our wax up and so forth. Oh, I didn't mention this. Sorry. What? The lab is really a part of our team. The lab
how so? How do you get them involved?
Right. So most of these cases we're doing with our restorative lab, CMR Dental Lab in Idaho Falls, Idaho. Matt Roberts is the head of that lab. And what we do with them is a couple of things. Number one, if it's truly one of these cases where I'm not sure how we're going to do this from the lab side of things, we'll Skype him in to our specialist meeting. That's cool. That's fun. We don't do that every time, but we do that sometimes. But at the very least, I need to know from him, what does he think the lab bill is going to be? Mm-hmm. So here's the case. Here's what we're doing. We send him all the records. He's going to help us with the wax up, and we can talk about how we do that. But I get to have some sense of, well, this is going to be one of those cases that's going to be a little bit more complex, or this is a slam dunk and it's a little bit less expensive, whatever it is, because like us, his fees based on time, complexity, et cetera, not just per unit, and they're all the same. And once I've got that information, I can plug it into my spreadsheet and know how to properly charge the patient a fair fee, where later on, number one, I'm not getting screwed where, oh man, that lab fee was way more than I thought it would be and I got to pay more, or vice versa. The lab fee was less than I thought it was going to be, and I screwed the patient because I charged them too much, Right. So knowing where we are with that is important. So we bring them in early on, the lab. And what did I say? Oh, the wax up. So we're doing everything digitally today. I probably should have said that too. Today, with the technology and where it's going, if you're not doing if you're not doing digital dentistry, you actually are and you don't know it. If you're taking traditional impressions, the first thing your lab does is they scan it in and they digitize it. So I swear to you, every lab. So
Matt's scanning all these in, no matter where they're coming in from, whatever. Yeah.
I've been to Idaho. I've been to the lab. Trust me, there's no plaster in that place. I mean, there's a little, but it is like, it looks like walking into Google. It's all computers and clean marbled countertops and everything. So everything is done digitally. If they're scanning your model, so think about, that's a copy of a copy of a copy. So you made an impression, which has distortion. You poured it in stone, or the lab pours it in stone, which has distortion. Then they trim it, or now they got to work with the model and the stone and everything else, and it distorts. Then we're going to maybe wax it up, and the wax distorts, and then we're going to cast it or press it or whatever we're doing with it, and that distorts. There's so much room for distortion. It's amazing they ever fit. Now, they've got good ideas of distortion, so they make them fit really well. But when you do it digitally, directly, so we do an intraoral scan, and we use an iTero. It doesn't matter what scanner you use. All of them are really good today. No distortion factor. It can't distort. The lab gets that file directly. They don't have to go through that step of copying. And then they can digitally design the wax up or the restoration or whatever it is. And so for the wax up stage, Matt's got our photos, and he can overlay the photos with even the x-rays or the CT scans and the model, the scans of the teeth. And he draws in the teeth, I guess, on the computer. And then he mills a wax. The wax up is milled out of a block of wax. Wow. And then he can put that on a printed model to test it and check the occlusion and everything else. So we still are mounting those printed models, but they're just hyper accurate. And then we can generate provisionals and test that out in the mouth. And of course, then the finals are milled out of a solid puck of restorative material, Emax or zirconia or whatever it is. And the fits are unbelievable. They're super strong. He can do the cutback digitally for the layering. So he's still doing lots of fancy layering to get it to look like beautiful teeth in the front. But he's doing that digitally and milling the already cut back restoration. So he's not having to grind on that material, which we know introduces microfractures and weakens the material. So it's just, I know I'm rambling. It's just so cool. And he can then send me a picture, a file of whatever he's designed, and I can say, oh no, we need to make it longer or fatter or shorter or skinnier or whatever. And we can even get online together on a like a GoToMeeting thing, and he can show me, the models are turning, and I can say, oh, well, let's turn it here and let me see. And he can do the function on the computer and on the digital articulator. It's fun, it's cool, and it's so accurate. We have very little adjustments in the end, and the patients know exactly what they're getting before they get it. So cool.
And I don't think you're rambling at all. It's spot on, because the thing that I'm thinking about is accuracy skyrockets when you're doing that. And not only the time factor is hugely reduced, and then it goes back to what you said at the beginning. You're developing a whole system. So when you're thinking about going down this path, it's not an effort here. I've been to your office many times. I mean, you've got great systems in place. This is something you duplicate.
Thanks to you.
Well, you did it, buddy. Now I want to go back, because a couple of things. I have so many questions about this. So when you have the patient come back, come in for the specialist consult, and you use the word looking around, it's important to know, and give us your philosophy on this. You're not talking about solutions, because a lot of times dentists can go right into the solution right away. You're talking football. You're making a connection, building the basic for the basic layer for all this dentistry, which is trust, for them to come back for the comprehensive exam, which you mentioned is an hour and a half, right?
100% right. Yes. The patient often will go to solutions like, I need a crown on my implant, and I'm looking at uneven gum lines and tooth size discrepancies and spacing and whatever. And I'm thinking, if we just put a crown on this implant, it's going to look ridiculous. Right. But I don't even go there. I just say, well, let's look at it and figure out where you are and what you want. But the whole time we're talking about, where the family, and they go, I've got all the information where the kids go to school, or what church they go to, or that they're into soccer, or that they're, down here in Georgia, SEC football is everything. So that you can almost hit anyone men, the women, the kids, whoever, they're all fanatic fans. So you can always go to that. And because I'm a Gator fan, I'm hated around here because everybody's a Bulldog fan. so we get to play that game. And so yeah, it's all of those things. And it's making the connection. It's building the trust. And I think a little bit of it, I'm just learning this, I think, is showing that I'm human,
right?
That I'm just a person with kids and a family and sixth grade homework that I can't stand. I'm waiting for my kid. I heard her come in. I'm waiting for her to scream at me that she needs help with her homework.
Bring her in.
Right, bring her in. So you don't want it, trust me.
Yeah.
I think there's a little bit of that's really important, because sometimes it's easy to be the sort of the almighty knowing dentist on the pedestal and the patient's down here and we're looking at them upside down and telling them what they need and all. And that's old school, man. And it's more about partnering with the patient as an equal. They're human, I'm human, they've got life, I've got life. And in the middle of all that, we're going to figure out how to best help them.
Yeah. Yeah. I like the word advocacy. I mean, we're here together. We're going to figure this out. We're going to learn together, get to know each other. And it's really cool how you position that whole thing and your philosophy behind it. Now, so many other things when it comes to having them back, and then you start working with your special, like give us a little idea of the workflow behind that. I mean, you gave us some perspective on that, but is there anything, if I'm a young dentist watching this, what are some of the things I need to know about how you're thinking the workflow is going to happen after the comprehensive exam? And what are the timeframes in between? Because I'm curious as the timeframe between the actual first specialty consult and when they actually come back for the comprehensive exam and what happens after that.
Okay, so it very much depends on what the situation with the patient is. So let's take the easiest one and say a patient who's referred to me by the periodontist.
Okay.
They don't have a dentist. They have some restorative needs, just generic, whatever, and they're going to come establish themselves. That comprehensive exam might happen immediately. It might be instead of the specialist consult. It might be the next week or two. And at that comprehensive exam, we'll gather all the records. That is more of a technical visit at that point.
Right.
We actually call it a records appointment. And I should say this, I think this is unique also, not unique, but when I'm teaching down at the Panky Institute, especially to a E1 or E2 student that's not doing routine comprehensive exams and routinely gathering all of the information that they may want to gather, usually the reason is, well, the patient, they're a new patient and they don't necessarily see the value in everything yet. I've got to wait to build the rapport before I start taking a full series of x-rays. So we just take some bite wings, or, I'm not going to get models or scans of the teeth, and I'm not going to look at the occlusion or whatever the things that are holding them back. And we've dumbed it down to something so simple. There's a flat fee for our comprehensive exam.
Okay.
And it's a low ball fee. It's $295. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that or not. But that's the flat fee for the comprehensive exam.
Mm-hmm.
That includes whatever I want it to.
Okay, that's cool.
So what's amazing is no one ever says no to what I want, because it's included. By the way, if you say no and later on we want it, I charge you for it. So, and I tell the patient that. So take advantage now. We get an FMX, we get a PAN, we used to get diagnostic casts. Now we do scans, occlusal records. We do a full cosmetic photo shoot in case there's cosmetic needs. We do a full perio probing, oral cancer screening, whatever it is I want, I get it.
Right.
And no one fights me because it's all included. If you charge for each of those things on a first visit, it's a $1,500 visit. No one's coming for a $1,500 first visit. I get it.
Right.
We'll make it up later when the patient says yes to their comprehensive treatment plan.
Right.
And I already know in the back of my head, we've spent an hour and a half with them. Mm-hmm. I know that. So as we're doing their case fee in the fee estimating exercise, I already know there's an hour and a half in there that they owe me, if you will. And so we will eventually get paid for that.
Right.
So I don't worry about that. And if somebody says no, great. Then they don't feel like they got screwed. They spent $295 to get well educated about their mouth, and they said no. Fine.
Right.
Shake hands, and everybody's happy. So anyway,
right. And I just think for simplicity's sake, I mean, it's just the fee to upfront that we can collect whatever we need to collect as I learn more. So I don't have to overthink it.
Exactly right. And that appointment, there's still not a lot of solutions. And I'll tell patients, today is fact-finding day. All we want to do is discover whatever the conditions in your mouth are and help you understand what those conditions are and what that might mean. Right. So it's a lot of showing them the intraoral photographs and showing them, experiencing here. Now rub your teeth, feel your tooth moving. Yeah, you don't want your tooth to move. Or showing them the recession or the calculus bridge on their teeth. Whatever it is, we want them to experience it and see it. That's part of that co-discovery exam that everybody talks about. Is they have to experience it. It's not. I could do it in 15 minutes and find out everything I need to know. It's an hour and a half because the patient needs to know. Yeah. And that's where that comes in. Following that comprehensive exam, we then probably are going to have the meeting where I'll meet with the specialist. So depending on when that falls in the month, if it's at the end of the month, the comprehensive exam, I'm going to meet with the specialist the next week at the first of the month. If it was at the first of the month, it might be a whole month before I meet with them. Now, if there's urgency, we can meet more. I can call and say, hey, I need to meet with you about this patient, or we can just talk about it on the phone or whatever. But the scheduled meeting is the first Monday of the month. So and then once we've had our meeting and we've figured out a diagnosis and treatment options and maybe treatment sequences, then I'll bring the patient back for what we call a review of findings, where we sit down with the patient. If there's a decision maker, we'll ask the decision maker to come. Yesterday's review of findings, the guy brought his wife, and he said, "I've brought the boss." Okay, good. So and then we can sit down and we review the new patient comprehensive exam. We sit there and look at the pictures again, and we have the big screen, and the patients are getting to see it on the screen. And as you say, you like to see the smudges on the screen. There's a lot of smudges on the screen. We clean it after each patient, but because it would get really smudgy. And the idea is for them to go, well, what am I going to do about that? Or what are you going to do about that? Or what can we do about that? Now we can have the conversation because now they own their own condition. And that's the whole point. And now we're already prepared. We're in there acting like we don't even know what we're going to do yet. We're just showing you what we found. But reality is we've had the conversation with the specialist. We know what the treatment plans options are, what the sequence is. And when they say they're ready to hear that by saying, what are we going to do about that? Then we can whip it out. Here it is, and we don't just give them the Dentrix printout, by the way. That thing is for us, the Dentrix printout. That's for the insurance company to get their $1,500 off of their $30,000 case or whatever. But we, on our own letterhead, we write it out in plain English, not dentalese. And first phase is, provisional phase. It might be all it says. Second phase is, periodontal procedures. We try not to use the word surgery, or gum repair, whatever you want to write, something in English. And then third phase is final restorations or whatever, broken down real simply with some idea of what timing in between. There's going to be 3 months for healing. We write that in there, whatever the timing is, and how long we expect the appointments to be. That's on there, and then the fee. For most cases, we'll break it into stages. So provisional fee, periodontal fee will be from the periodontist, and then, restorative final fee. And so there may be 3 fees and then a total at the bottom. We've got the per tooth fee on the Dentrix thing. So if insurance wants to know, and everybody asks me, they say, well, how do you do that? Well, I do my worksheet. I come up with the case fee, and you can divide it up any way you want. Right. You could say 1 crown is $10,000 and the rest are free. You could say 10 crowns are $1,000 each. Right. You could say whatever it is. It doesn't matter as long as you haven't signed a contract with somebody who's telling you what you can charge. If you're basing your fees on what the real cost is, it's an appropriate fee because it's fair to the patient and it's fair to the practice.
Right.
And you divide it up any way you want for the insurance company. It doesn't matter.
Right. And you've gotten your skill and judgment in there that you've worked so hard to develop. And really, you're always, your whole compass is just do the right thing. And you guys do an incredible job. And we could do a whole show on why you don't itemize fees and just go, because, anything you itemize patients, but your whole focus is let's do the right thing. And here's the time frame. Now, I know we only get you for so long because I have so many other questions, but if I'm a young dentist watching this and I go, Dr. Becker, that sounds so cool, but you know what? You don't understand where I'm at. What would you say to that? Because I get these questions all the time. Dentists come up to me, even last Wednesday, dentist is like, I don't think I could ever practice fee for so. I'm like, what are you talking about? What would you say? What would you say to that? Or what advice would you give a young dentist getting started?
Yeah, so I think what I would say is, you're right. I might not know exactly where you are. I don't know what it's like because I was a young dentist in a different time. But I would also say that I've been a young dentist. I've been a starving, struggling young dentist, where I could have easily decided to build my practice quickly by signing up on a bunch of plans and done that. And there's nothing wrong with that, by the way. Right. I chose to start out, I guess, slower and build it sort of one patient at a time, doing it the way I wanted to do it from the beginning. And that's worked for me. But if somebody who's already maybe signed up with some plans and has a big, busy practice, I would also tell them, don't just cut them out. You'll be in trouble doing it that way too. I think you got to do it smartly. You do it in stages, slowly over time. You start with your least beneficial one, the one that just screws you every time. Get rid of that one, and usually that's easy. And then just slowly begin to, and here's I learned this from my dad. Take one half day, Thursday afternoon. Thursday afternoon is your day that you are only going to see your comprehensive care restorative fee-for-service patient. Right. And block it out. Nothing else gets put in there. And you block it in the schedule. Just go through your schedule till you find the next Thursday afternoon that's open and block it out and reserve it for that sort of special patient, the interdisciplinary patient, the complex patient, the fee-for-service patient. And you start doing that and just do that half day in this way. And here's what happens. That half day, becomes your favorite day. You look forward to it. Right. We call those days, by the way, I have a busy general practice. This is not like I just do tons of big cases every day. You do a few big cases a month. Right. It's a great month. The rest of the time I'm doing, class 2 composites and whatever, regular dentistry, regular old dentistry. But so that day becomes your most productive day also. Right. And we see those patients on those special days, and we talk to the patient like it's a special day. We're going to schedule you on this special day, and I'm blanking on what we call the day. We have a good name for it. I forget what it is. But so we schedule them on that day. And the staff loves that day. It's the least stressful day. It's the most fun day. And all of a sudden you go, well, wait a minute. I need another half a day.
I was going to say, one thing your dad told me is it doesn't stay a half a day. It turns into a full day.
It turns into a full day. And then you're having more time that you need for specialist meeting or lab work because it requires more of that time. So then you block out, your half day Wednesday is for non-patient time. You're working, your team's there. You're not like going to play golf, but you've had to do that. And the whole time you're doing that, your production's going up and you're seeing fewer patients in fewer days and time. And it's a slow, steady thing. What I would say is if somebody really is at that stage, like the dentist you described, don't do it on your own. You need to seek out the help of others who have already done it, because you don't have to reinvent the wheel. There's lots of people who've done this. Certainly working with ACT can easily help somebody transition. I know you do a lot with that. Go to the Panky Institute. They will help you they'll hold your hand literally through the stages, and you come to E1 and you're where you are now. And by the time you go to E2, you've already begun to transform your practice. And by the time you get to E4 and you see me to learn about these complex interdisciplinary things, you're already kind of there. Yeah. You're doing it. So
now explain what that is, because early in my journey at the age of 24, 25, I was told I didn't have a choice. I went and I loved it. And your dad and Clayton Davis were my two instructors, changed my whole life. I got to know Murph and all those guys. What if somebody's watching this, they don't know what the Panky Institute is? Can you walk us through what is it? Where is it? How does it work?
Sure. So Panky Institute will be celebrating its 50th anniversary next year of being in existence. So Dr. Panky, LD Panky, is not with us anymore, but he was a pioneer dentist in the early days of dentistry in America. And there's a whole story that's really interesting about how his mom came in and had all her teeth extracted, and she said, "I hope you're not doing that to anybody." And he had just extracted like hundreds of teeth. I don't remember the exact story. And this was in rural Kentucky. And he said, "I'm never doing that again." And he thought there was a better way to help patients keep their teeth for a lifetime. And simply by identifying problems before they became bigger problems and being more preventive and proactive than reactive, and he developed this philosophy. So a group of dentists were going to study with him. He had moved to Miami at that time, and he had this group of dentists that just kept coming back to learn from him. And then they decided to honor him by creating this idea of the Panky Institute. So today, the Panky Institute is state-of-the-art, hands-on, personal touch education, not just the technical. We also go into the practice management part of it. How do I make this work in my practice? And the behavioral. How do I get a patient to want to do this? How do I get my team to get on board? So it's the technical, it's the behavioral, it's the financial, it's the life part of it. How does this fit in my life? And so it's the only not-for-profit dental continuing education institute anywhere. Right. It is a little different. We don't have corporate entities telling us what to do and what not to do. If we say something, it's because we believe in it. And most of the courses. So there's 4 core courses they call essential courses, and they're sort of progressive. E1, E2, Essentials 1, 2, 3, and 4, and they're a week long, Sunday to Thursday, and sometimes they do them Tuesday to whatever. They're a week long. And then there's all these other focus courses that you can do that are usually like 2 or 3 day weekend courses that are very specific towards some, Invisalign or splint therapy or advanced equilibration, aesthetics. No, the aesthetics is a week. That's the best course, by the way, the aesthetics course, but you can't take it till you've taken it, I think E1 and 2, whatever that is. Right. The best way to learn about it, go to their website, panky.org, pankey.org. Their website is, it's actually being upgraded as all of our websites are. And you can find out all the information. And it's taught by dentists, by people who are doing it. Regular practicing dentists go down and volunteer our time to go down and teach what we do every week. And it's a special place. So
yeah, you got to go check it out. I'll put a link in the post here. Just click on it. And then I did get, do you have time for one more question? Because we got
no, but let's do it.
All right. Well, I've got one more question. You can answer as fast as you seem very particular and likely to only use the finest specialists that operate with quality similar to you. Can you share with us a conversation you may have had in the past with a specialist that failed you and your patient and your needs to improve or leave? Like give us an idea of a conversation that failed in the past.
Yeah, there's been plenty. So I have an orthodontist in town who's an excellent orthodontist, has a great reputation, big practice. I noticed a habit of seeing patients would come to me with the braces off already. Mm-hmm. And I would try to help him understand, like, look, it's really helpful if I get to see them first. And I tell the patient, but he's like, oh no, we can take them off, you're done. And we just butted heads with that. And so the end result of that is we don't work together. Mm-hmm. It's not that he's a bad guy. It's just that wasn't important to him. It wasn't important to that last, like you said, the particular, some people call it particular, some people call it anal retentive, OCD, whatever it is, we all have it. But I know that if I don't see it almost every time, if I don't see it, there's something else I would have wanted to have done that I wish we hadn't taken the braces off yet. If I see it almost every time, okay, it's perfect. We're there. Like, it sort of happens that way. So sometimes there's something I want more, but anyway, that's probably the best example I can give you. It's a hard conversation. But at some point, if somebody's just going to butt heads with you, don't work with them. I mean, nothing's worth that kind of aggravation.
That's good. It's good, buddy. I know you got to run. We're taking you away from your personal time, but I'm crazy, crazy grateful for our friendship, just your time, everything. And I really, really appreciate you. So if people want to get a hold of you, how can they get a hold of you? Because you're not on Facebook.
No, I'm not. I am the last remaining human being to be on Facebook, much to Sheryl Sandberg's dismay. So the best way to get in touch with me is literally by email. My personal email is docbecks, DOCBECKS @mac.com. docbecks@mac.com. Send me an email. Please, in the subject, write something about, I guess, ACT or best practices or something, or I will probably ignore it because I don't know if I don't know who you are, it's hard to look at. I get hundreds of emails. And you can call me. My cell phone, I give out my cell phone, 404-245-1453. 404-245-1453. Call my cell phone. Leave me a message. Tell me you saw me. You got a question. Happy to work with you, help you out, answer any questions.
He will call you back. Yeah.
Good.
So it's awesome, buddy.
And I guess the only other place to see me is I'm doing routine videos as a curator on Restorative Nation, Lee Brady's
awesome
new online community that's really cool, Restorative Nation. And so that's the other place where a lot of personal stuff on that. Story about my kids' sleep studies, a special story about a patient with ectodermal dysplasia. So another good place to see me.
Yeah, check out Restorative Nation too. And we also have your website, Atlanta Dental Solutions, listed, so you can check that out. So,
correct.
Buddy, thank you so much. Stay up for just a second. We'll say goodbye to everybody, but I want to talk to you.
I love you, man.
Love you, man. All right. So, hey, if you're watching this, thank you so much for watching today. We're crazy grateful. And if you enjoyed today, do me a favor, just hit the share button and share this with your friends. We'd love to share this information with as many people that are willing to listen, and keep sending us good feedback about the things that you want to see. So until we see you next time, keep watching the Best Practices Show. You guys have a great day. Thank you so much.